and welcome to this session called Infinite Lifecycles. This is all about the circular economy, as you've guessed. So this afternoon we'll be talking about how to put an end to single-use products and planned obsolescence. We all know their detrimental effect on the environment. So whether we're businesses or consumers, we're all very eager to find out how to actually make, encourage, and provide products that are long-lasting and have multiple lives. So from reconditioning to retrofitting, from refilling to recycling, I really do have the pleasure to welcome the pioneers of these industrial practices on stage for the next hour or so. But first, we will be talking about the philosophy behind all of this and the gargantuan effort that's required behind the scenes to make these things possible, to make powerful industries change their habits. And for that, I can welcome Laetitia, Vasseur, and Vianney, Vaute on stage. Yes. So Laetitia Vasseur is from Halte à l'Obsolescence Programmée, UP, a non-for-profit organization that fights back against planned obsolescence. And Vianney Vaute is the co-founder and COO of Back Market, the international marketplace for refurbished electronics, as I'm sure you all know. Let's start with you, Vianney. Why is Back Market so invested in the right to repair movement?
Simply because Back Market mission is to make the consumption of refurbished, renewed device, as mainstream as new ones. If you look at the global numbers, for 9 new devices sold new, you have 1 sold second-hand, which is a big issue, and the goal is to balance the market. And we won't be able to do it if we don't turn refurbishing factories into true industrial champions. And this is where right to repair plays a critical role, because if I want my industrial champions to rise, they need an access to repair as easily as possible. That will have 2 effects. One on quality, because if you find the right spare pieces and if devices are easy to repair, then the quality of the refurbishment process will rise up and it can become a true alternative to new. And it will have an effect on the business model of those sellers because their unit economics are kind of shaky. And when you make repair easier, you make their job easier, and they can, grow as businesses and make the revolution that is needed, basically.
And Vianney, could you give us some concrete examples about what the state is right now for phone repairs? How does it work? Why is it so difficult?
If I look at the overall situation, the overall trend, it's a pretty gloomy picture. I don't think manufacturers really went in the right direction. Devices are more, they're harder to open. The batteries are now glued to the very phone. And on top of that, we can see also new practices. I would call it a psychological warfare. With error messages that are happening. If you don't fix your phone in a dedicated certified shop, certified by the manufacturer, you can have error messages popping up. And I think it's quite frustrating, obviously, because we all know the environmental impact that we can have if we leverage right to repair. But we also know that if manufacturers do their job right, they can have also a beautiful impact. And there are companies that are managing to do it at scale. I'm thinking about Fairphone, that maybe you know, that released a very modular phone with Fairphone 3. So it shows the way, it's possible to build hardware that is meant to last. The only issue we have today is that Fairphone sold maybe 100,000 units, I think, for 2020, which was already a record for them. But you have to compare that to 1.4 billion smartphones that are put on the market at a global scale every year. So there is still a little bit of work to be done.
A long way to go, but still, at least we're here today. Laetitia, UP has taken major companies to court over these practices that Vianney has just been talking about. Tell us about a major win for you.
Yeah, we launched a lawsuit against Apple because of planned obsolescence. And the problem was, Vianney said, many problems, but one that we tackled is that when the consumer was pushed to download a new iOS, then the phone didn't work so well or didn't work at all. So we launched a lawsuit, and then as a result, Apple had to pay 25 million of euros for misleading commercial practices, which is a crime, and proves that we were right in this lawsuit. So we can think also that it was a small fine, but I don't think so, because first of all, it was just for the French phone, but also they were obliged to tell about this court decision on their website publicly. And then we touch about their reputation. And here we have also a tool to try to make them changing their way. And I have to say, we don't have nothing against Apple particularly, but we want that the innovation goes to the direction of durability of products and not the opposite.
No, you said you might think it's a small fight. It's not. It's an absolutely huge fight, Laetitia. These legal solutions exist because you helped write a law in 2015 here in France that made planned obsolescence a punishable offence, and OP is now involved in a new anti-waste law that just came into effect.
Yes, we contributed actively on a law that it's the anti-waste law, and we gained a lot of progress, like, for instance, an index of durability, an index of repairability, but also like a fund of to help reparation and to consumer to repairs, because we know that the economic aspect is a major obstacle for people to repair. So we are really happy to gain this, to obtain this progress that are really important and that are really pioneer in France and in the world.
And Vianney, with laws like this coming into effect, and consumers who care more and more about topics like this, companies are trying to change their ways. You know, Apple has this new self-repair kit. What do you think about that?
What's interesting about the self-repair initiative from Apple, it's like it's not a solo one. I think in the same quarter, Microsoft, Samsung, Google announced pretty much the same stuff, which is how to make it easier for consumers to fix their devices through repair kits and some knowledge attached. I think it's still too early to tell. What's sure, to my view, is that the best thing manufacturers can do when it comes to right to repair is to create repairable products in the first place, which is not what Apple is doing today. So they can do all the self-repair program they want. As long as they don't deliver on this, I'm not going to be really satisfied. And I would tend to, question the ability of Apple to fundamentally push for right to repair, because philosophically it goes against every principle of Apple, which is a very controlling company, attaching software to hardware and making sure the whole user experience is branded Apple and in control of Apple. When it comes to repair, you have at one point to simply let it go and admit the fact that somebody that paid $1,300 for your phone should own the phone and be able to repair it through time. And I'm not sure it's really the mentality of Apple. And if manufacturers don't let go, then lawmakers and associations like HUP have to force them to let go. That's the only way we're going to make the second-hand market boom. And what gives me hope is that it's possible. If you apply the right level of pressure, politically, legally, regulatory, you can make the change. It happened on the car market, which was largely dominated by new cars manufacturing, and that got flipped over the past 30 years with right to repair bills. And now, when you look at the dynamics of the car market, 70% of cars are sold second-hand, only 30% new in France, and it's pretty much the same picture everywhere. So it's possible to bring this 10% second-hand at much bigger level in the world of electronic machines, which we're pushing for.
The market is definitely there. Laetitia, you mentioned earlier the durability index. How to make consumers more aware of these greenwashing attempts? Tell us, how does it work? What is it?
Yeah, for us, it's a very important progress, the durability index, because it's a mandatory index, first of all. So all manufacturers will have to give this information to the French consumer on the products that are tackled by the law. And so it's a mandatory information, and there is many criteria, and at the end you have a note, a grade about to 10, and so if you are more close to 10, you have a good grade of durability. It will take criteria as in account, like the accessibility of spare part, the capacity of the battery. It will take a lot of criteria that will give an information that we hope independent, as much as objective as possible, about the reliability, the robustness, and the repairability. So it's really important because it's not just Apple who can decide. I say that my product is robust or it's reliable. It's really great, and the consumer can compare different products. So it's a very powerful tool, and the working group are in progress now with a lot of shareholder, like including OP, and the result will be launched in 2025. 24, sorry, because now we have already an index of repairability, but this index of durability will go further, will give more information, and will be even more powerful.
Okay, so in 2024 in France, you'll be able to see that on products in stores. Vianney, back market also lobbies the stakeholders that Laetitia was talking about. How can companies and consumers and the state all come together to work towards this?
I think the mistake we could do is trying to go too far in an ideological fight, and it's tempting, right? Like when you look at right to repair, like quickly, like the notion of overconsumption, maybe like market regulation versus free market, like it can quickly get political, and I think that's a good way to antagonize, manufacturer and maybe leave consumers on the side of the road. So the two things I think we have to do is like go back to the facts and just look coldly at the environmental impact that you can have, which is obviously something we need today when it comes to repairing and augmenting the longevity of devices. Looking at the economical impact of relocating some factories, some repair shops next door instead of sourcing everything from China. And there is also an impact that is maybe more about like social justice when it comes to the relationship with the consumer. And my second belief about that, like walking away from ideology, is to accept, and I'm going to preach a little bit for our back market here, but like we need like companies that are building up like an alternative market, like trying to go in the arena, look at the consumers in the eyes, and convince them either to repair their device instead of buying new, or at least to go renewed. And admitting like we need at one point maybe advertising to fight advertising of Apple and Samsung. We need Hive services to fight their services. We need their products to fight against their own products. And this is what we are working on. And we need to rise up like a true cold counter model, not an ideological necessarily.
Is a bit like David and Goliath there. Could you tell us a little bit about the genesis of Back Market, because you are the co-founder?
Well, I'm not going to pitch it in too much length, but no, the idea was very simple. Like it's the discovery, not really mine, like more like Thibaut's, my partner, that got a call from a seller one day. Like he was a refurbishing partner, and he didn't really know what it was about. It was a factory located down south in France, like in Brive-la-Gaillarde. You push the door, like in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly you see like actual lines of production, people dressed as nurse, except they are not fixing people but devices. Dust-free rooms with like a little bit like 2001 Space Odyssey, people fixing screens and stuff. And I think the aha moment was there. Like we need to promote the know-how of these people, especially when like the environmental impact it has. But at first, I think it was not even thinking too much about the impact. It was just the excitement to see like there is something cool happening in the middle of nowhere. People won't notice when they connect on eBay or Amazon. Let's make one place to make this work valuable, and the rest followed.
Oh, so interesting. Laetitia, tell us more about UP's international ambitions. You talked to us here about what you're doing here in France, the laws you've been helping to write. What next?
Yeah, we are really ambitious about the international level, because we want that the durability, the extension of lifespan product are international, because our products are international. And we are quite optimistic in this way, because we were contacted by countries like Australia, in Belgium, in Canada, everywhere. The people are really interested, inspired by the progress in France, and want to do some measure also in the other countries to go in this direction of durability. In the US, we see that things are moving, and in the European level, we are working specifically on this level because it's a huge market, and we can obtain rules for all manufacturers. And we are really happy because they just published a very ambitious circular economy packet where we have very ambitious initiative and objectives on durability to change the eco-design directives with strong objective of durability. And this question is at the center of this European package of circular economy, which is really important for us because we have to think that when the product, and specifically electric and electronic device, the legal warranty is passed over, then only 10% of these products are repaired by people. So we have a huge work to do all together with company and with the public policies makers to go in this direction of durability and repairability and refit the object, because now it's not enough, clearly.
Vianney, a similar question for you. How do you see this alternative market growing internationally?
The first thing to acknowledge is that the problem we face and the company we try to convert are already global, right?
Yep.
And the phones that we discard in France, a lot of them can quickly end up in Ghana and stuff like that. That's why, like, our project, like, since we started it, like, was global. And actually, if you look at the dynamics of our market, it's already a globalized market. There are phones that are traded from the US, refurbished in some parts of Asia, and that can be sold on the German market. Personally, I don't have much of an issue with that. Of course, I would push for more local streams, which is already the case at scale. But again, I go back to, if we don't look at the new market in the eyes and try to create a competitive experience, at one point consumers won't, stick with us just for ideological purpose. You can't just tell about impact as embarked people are in the sustainable journeys. It won't be enough if you don't provide high services, a lot of supply, good pricing. It's not going to work. But when I look at the overall dynamic, to address your question more directly, like, clearly I see the new market struggling, like it's kind of at a steady or negative growth actually in some areas, and obviously choice of renewed rising up. But I think the next frontier really, on top of scaling the act of buying renewed and maybe sell back the old devices, is what happens in the middle. How can we extend the lifespan of the device through the act of repair, which I think, to me, even if it doesn't go really in the direction of my business, is the real transformative act to do. I think, just to give you an idea, like if every European phone lifespan was going from 2 to 7 years, which is possible through the act of repair, we would alleviate like more than 1 million carbon metric tons of carbon emission. So we have this power in our hands. It's no matter of converting consumers to the philosophy of repair, I guess.
Brilliant. Long-lasting products could be the future, I hope. Indeed. Thank you so much, Laetitia, Vasseur, and Vianney, Vaute, for talking to us about your shared vision, about alternative markets, and about consumer rights. Let's give them a round of applause. It's time now for our panel discussion about the reuse, refill, and recycle solutions in the packaging industry. For that, I can welcome Xavier, Joseph, Clem, Schmid, and Ben Patten to the stage. Hello. Just get some water. So Xavier Joseph is the VP in Global Marketing and Innovation at Aptar, which is a leading company that designs and manufactures dispensing solutions for beauty, food, and pharma. Clem is the Executive VP of Commercial at Loop, which is a mission-driven company that focuses on giving infinite life to packaging through a deposit system. And Ben Patten, Ben is the CEO of Good Club, who started with zero waste deliveries direct to doorsteps and is now about to start to supply retailers. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to start with you, Clem, first. How have businesses been reacting to your idea, even though you're actually trying to completely upend the supply chain as we know it?
No, it's a great question. So we've seen a lot of business leaning in. So today we're working with over 200 brands and over 20 retailers globally that represent 500 products either in market or in development in a reusable packaging in 5 markets: Japan, France, UK, Canada, and the US. The ambition is, of course, sustainability. That's what's driving the agenda, but not only. What you realize is when you move from a disposable package, which is in today's economy a cost of goods, destined to be thrown away after every single usage, into a reuse model where the package becomes an asset for the manufacturer that opens unprecedented doors for innovation, investment into a package that therefore brings new benefits to consumers today.
New benefits. Ben, you also do similar things. You're working towards retailers, but you also started with the zero waste food deliveries, and that depends on changing consumer habits. Where are we on that?
Well, I think the good news is there's a lot of appetite for change. In the UK, plastic waste is the #1 environmental concern for consumers. And there's also a lot of interest in reusable packaging. Over 85% of consumers say they'll use reusable packaging, but there are barriers. Obviously, it's new. It's a new concept. There are barriers on an emotional level, I suppose. People, the language as well. I think there's maybe an assumption in the space that people understand terms that we've already started to adopt, like zero waste. And we've done some work recently that demonstrates that zero waste is actually quite a sort of negative term in the eyes of consumers. And there's also some confusion around reuse, refill, pre-fill, lots of different kind of variants on the language. So I think helping consumer, and there's a wider ecosystem where there are other kind of solutions for packaging. So helping consumers, I think there's still some work to do there, but it is an embryonic space. It is quite new. There are also kind of more practical barriers. Obviously, the cost is the main one at the moment, but everyone's kind of working on bringing the cost down. And there are other kind of. I think everyone needs to think from first principles. There are one of the assumptions that we had early on was that consumers will want to use the reusable packaging and decant it into glass jars, which they then store. And that does work for certain products, but glass jars are also heavy and they're impractical. Older people, younger people struggle with glass jars. They're expensive. They take up more space. There's also just, if you've got reusable packaging in the house and you finish it, it takes up quite a lot of space. Yeah. Unless you can build a stackable design or something that folds away, you're actually putting more sort of micro practical weight on the consumer. So I think the thing that we've been really obsessed about is understanding the consumer's experience in the home and iterating towards something that works better for them.
There are a lot of new challenges when it comes to new ideas. Xavier, Aptar is turning to recycled plastics. Tell us about some of your big innovations.
Yeah, sure. So we believe in keeping the plastic inside the economy, but out of the environment. And I have 2 simple examples about that. One is about making recyclable products. So we think of the pump on your body lotion or on your hand soap. These pumps have plastic and metal. We make full plastic pumps, easy to recycle together with the bottle in order to make it easy for the consumers. Another example is making products done with recycled plastic, so plastic that already had a first life. Well, that's a very scientific and technical work to get there, because you need to make sure that the recycled plastic is safe, is not contaminated. And we are lucky to leverage our pharma analytical practices to make sure that no microbial contamination has happened, and that the product is great for health, beauty, food. On top of that, those are new materials, and new materials call for new transformation processes. And we are lucky because we have great engineering capabilities that transform those recycled plastic into safe, robust caps for your shampoos or for your ketchup bottle, so that it can be easily used. And even some raw material startups that develop really new recycled resins, very pure, such as Pure Cycle or Next Loop, they come and partner with us when it's about creating those new objects.
Of course, safety is really important when
Yep.
it comes to recycled products. Clem, what have some of the major obstacles been for Loop?
Bringing reuse to life is a disruptive innovation. Scaling it is another one. And you would argue that for many different products, it could be a disruption in itself per product. So it comes with its fair share of challenges. We're talking operational challenges, obviously. It's the creation of a reverse supply chain that it didn't exist in the market today. So we're talking about collections and how do you get the product back into the filling line. You're obviously talking cleanings of standards, managing, developing, creating the standards that don't exist today in an industry that's just starting, and ensuring those standards are maintained over and over again. And of course, you have the last one, which is not the smallest one, which is a mindset shift from every actor in the chain of having a package that's not going to look brand new after it has rotated 20 or more times.
And Ben, these are also things that you're struggling with or you're working with. The idea, you talked earlier about cost parity, hygiene standards. Tell us more.
Yeah. Well, I think for all the early players in this space, you have to sort of get involved in everything. But there is an ecosystem evolving and more specialism from different players. But we've collaborated quite a lot with another business on the cleaning process, and clearly the cleaning process needs to be perfect. Like, I think in the space we also have a kind of collective responsibility to make sure that reuse works and people have full confidence in the process. So we try and be very open. We monitor obsessively the cleanliness of the clean room, the fill room, and monitor what happens with consumers as well, how the product arrives with consumers. And I guess generally obviously the main barrier ultimately is cost. So you need to clean in a really efficient manner as well. The route that we're starting to take is around standardization with the packaging. Now, I think you can standardize for certain categories, and there will be, and you see that anyway in packaging. You see, Tetra Pak's a great example, covers a lot of categories and a lot of different products. But with standardization, you can optimize for the cleaning process, for the filling process, for all aspects of the supply chain. As an example, the pots we're building, they're stackable like this. So on a pallet, we can fit 10 times as many containers as we would be able to fit if they weren't stackable, which means that you're paying 10 times less the haulage fee. And I think that's one example of how you need to sort of think holistically about bringing the cost down for reuse, while at the same time never compromising on the quality of the clean and reuse process.
Because you are, of course, competing against disposable, really cheap, really quick plastics.
Yeah.
So how do you make that make that work?
Well, I think you can get to cost parity. I think it is possible. I mean, at the moment the cost of plastic is increasing. There's legislation arriving, and further legislation will arrive, which will help to level the playing field further. We can already see with our unit economics how much we've changed the margin in quite a short period of time, and we're very focused on a kind of small range of categories. So, and the volumes, I don't want to pretend that we're Tesco's or Carrefour at the moment, but you can see that with certain for future volume breaks, you'll hit certain economies, and it will be possible to get closer. I think concentrating on thinking about the segment you're targeting and concentrating for us on sort of better, best, and brands that have a natural affinity with reuse and customers that have an affinity for those brands and therefore will buy into reuse and perhaps be prepared to pay a premium so that the brand offers the product in their conventional packaging and in reusable packaging. That seems to be where we're having the most success. I mean, ultimately, we want it to be something that everyone can access, but sort of just being practical about who you start with.
We're talking about brands. Xavier, Aptar works with a lot of brands, and it's developing reloadable products. How do your customers react to this? Do they think it's bad for business?
Well, they think it's great new business.
Okay.
Because it's creating a totally new consumer experience. And it's already happening. Everyone knows refillable lipsticks or refillable, reloadable, nice skincare jars. It's already happening. What's great is that it's creating a new product experience, because on one hand, you bring the best of uniqueness, singularity, together with responsibility and sustainability. You have the reusable part that can be even more durable, robust, convenient, safe, personalized, even connected. And on the other end, you have the disposable part, full plastic, easy to recycle, with a single job to guarantee that the formula will be safe and with a minimal size to be e-commerce compliant. So at the end of the day, it's just about elevating the consumer experience. And what is great in the topic of reusability is that there are many consumer experiences that we are going to invent, many products that we are going to invent, and that's all the more exciting.
Indeed. Clem, Loop really has been a pioneer in the reuse, refill market. Tell us a bit more about that. Where is it going? What's next? I know you work extensively with Carrefour, for example.
Yes, so what next? Loop launched in 2019 at the World Economic Forum at Davos. Within 2 years, including a global pandemic, we now expanded into 5 markets and we're present in stores. It started here in Paris in 2020 with Carrefour, where we launched the first 10 stores with a set of products for consumers to try reuse. I was talking about the challenges that we have as we're putting reuse into the market. We have successfully passed the first phase of those pilots. We've proven consumers are ready and adopting this habit. We've cracked the reverse supply chain and managed to qualify the high standards of cleaning from a wide variety of products, from laundry to shampoo. We talked a lot about the food. Food safety is obviously paramount in what we're doing. And now the excitement is moving to the next phase. So scaling up, scaling the proposition to more businesses, more stores, and more product.
Well, you just mentioned scaling up there, but Ben, this is a new ecosystem. This is relatively new. That means there are new players. Who are the new players, and how do they all fit into this new supply chain?
Yeah, well, I mean, if I think for all of us, we look at this as being a fundamental change in the supply chain. So and you think about the range of categories and products, the different technical challenges, the different designs that will be needed, the brands that will need to accommodate, the different retailers, shopping missions that we're accommodating. There are going to be, there's going to be a real variety of players. People will clean locally, people will clean centrally. There are companies working on digital passports for the reusable assets. There's people working on blockchain solution for that digital identification. So I think there's lots of players that are emerging who, it's difficult to be entirely sure how the ecosystem is going to evolve because it is early days, and it's it's a really embryonic stage, but there will be different players that together form the platform for reuse.
And Xavier, Aptar is actually in a partnership with an Indonesian startup that offers a very similar service to Good Club when it comes to zero waste deliveries. Tell us about that.
Yes, it's actually a venture that we have a lot of passion for. So the startup is called Siklus, S-I-K-L-U-S, based in Indonesia. They are fighting to eradicate the use of single-use plastic sachet that you find a lot in Southeast Asia. They deliver personal care and home care products in bulk at your door. So take, for example, delivery people coming on an electric motorbike with a lot of jerry cans at the back. They were using the typical tap that you use to dispense water, but it was not suitable to dispense shampoo or liquid detergent or dishwashing liquid because those are much thicker. So we helped them to develop a brand new tap that enables to dispense those thick liquids in a faster and cleaner way. It helps them to scale up their business. We love doing that because we make ourselves even more useful by mobilizing our technical capabilities to help them solve concrete issues. And at the end of the day, we learn from each other, because what we hope is that if this type of model develops in the world, if in-store bulk refill of liquid laundry shampoos develops, we have a perfect tap to work with it and participate to the movement.
And then what else is Aptar doing to encourage more startups and collaborations like this?
For example, this year at ChangeNOW 2022, we are launching our Let's Co-Create initiative. It means that we are calling all inventors, startups, entrepreneurs to come to the ChangeNOW website, load on our partner page, Easy, Aptar. You will find a form where you can explain your idea, explain the technical challenge you are running into, and we will select the 3 of those where we believe we can bring help, such as the help we've been bringing to Siklus. We'll work together at our Envision Lab capability close to Paris with our technical, designer, marketing experts, and hoping, yes, to help you scaling up your venture and progress together in the field of reusability.
Of course, Aptar very ahead in all that's R&D and innovation. Clem, what can we do, like all of us here as everyday consumers, what can we do personally to encourage circular models?
No, I think we heard it before, and we heard it also in the opening ceremony. We have a huge power, us as individual. Companies obviously want to do what's right, want to move into sustainability, but first and foremost, what they want to do is make product that consumer will buy, love, and use. And if we are each of us able to show them and vote with our wallets, with the choices that we're making on the everyday product that we consume, then we have an impact, and then we'll create unlock the innovation into all of the businesses that we have. And I think there is another part which says there is no need to choose one particular answer over the others. The problem is big enough so that there needs to be several solutions for it. So the more we can get acquainted with those solutions, the more we can choose, and the more we can support the different pilots or the different ideas that are emerging, then the higher the chances that we find solution for the problem quicker.
Yeah, indeed, that really is a key message. The problem is big enough for everyone to take a slice of the pie. I mean, it really shows the diversity of your different projects. Earlier also we talked to back market and up. Everyone has a different line on this, but we all are part of the same idea, which is the circular economy and how it could be good business and it could be a big part of how businesses are run. Ben, what's your message for companies that want to take the leap and join the circular economy and this new ecosystem you have?
Well, I mean, speaking very specifically about packaging and groceries, I think, there's obviously a lot of vested interest in the status quo. I think I think with any corporation, clearly the exact motivations are always an amalgamation of different forces. But but there will be a reluctance to change in certain parts of any organisation. But I think the one thing that we have demonstrated with reuse and refill is not only that there's consumer demand, but also that it is superior. And I think the limitations for recycling are kind of all too clear. You know, there's municipal recycling only exists in a very small proportion of the world, and where it does exist, there are real limitations, and there are limitations. You know, I realise that there are some hopes around chemical recycling and other kind of silver bullet solutions, but I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that reuse is going to play a big part. And so I think, as I said earlier, you know, just I'd encourage people to think big about this. I'd encourage brands to get in early and collaborate and think about how their product could be sold in a reusable container. There's an opportunity now to be seen as pioneers in their category as well. But also there's an opportunity to, you know, potentially own a part of that new ecosystem as well. So, yeah, a lot of opportunity.
Indeed. And finally, Xavier, how about you? Do you ever encounter a lot of reluctance to change within your own company, within your own industry?
Within my company, certainly not. And we are mobilizing multiple streams, recycle, recyclable, reloadable, refill partnerships to accelerate the movement. I hope you have realized that this requires a lot of serious work, scientific, technical, partnership, inventivity. You don't do that overnight, but we are ready, and we are using this stage also to tell brands that there is a sense of urgency in order to really accelerate the movement and turn it into a reality in our daily life.
Indeed. Thank you so much for your messages, all three of you, Ben, Clem and Xavier. That's all we have time for this panel. Thanks for sharing with us your business ideas, your goals and your philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Last but not least, I do have the pleasure to welcome Jean-Philippe Bahuaud to the stage.
Hello, everyone.
Jean-Philippe is the VP of Strategy, Environment and Refactory at Renault Group. So we're going to zoom in on how the auto industry is learning to become a major player in adopting a holistic approach to revamp what already exists to enter the virtuous cycle that is the circular economy. Jean-Philippe, firstly, tell us a bit about you. What is your role exactly at Renault and how did you get there?
So first of all, thanks for giving me the chance to speak about what we do in Renault. I joined the Renault Group in 2018, so it's been now a bit more than 3 years since I work at this company. I joined initially at the corporate strategy planning and was in charge of a few different projects. Worked extensively with Luca Di Meo, our CEO, in order to shape the Renaulution, which is our strategic plan driving us towards 2025 and 2030 downwards. And more recently, last year, I also took the responsibility of the circular economy within the Renault Group. And within this, we find Renault Environnement, which is one of our businesses, and then the Refactory project, which is the turnaround of a factory in Flins.
Well, refactory really is the key word here and the one we're mostly interested about. What is it exactly and how do you do it?
Yeah, so a refactory, it's actually based in Flins. Flins is roughly 45 minutes away from Paris. It's not too far away from here. And it's a vehicle assembly site. It's quite large, 2.5 square kilometers. It opened in 1952. And during the last 70 years, Flins was an assembly site dedicated to assembling the iconic vehicles such as the Renault 4, the Renault 5, and some others. Today, it is still assembling the Renault Zoe and the Nissan Micra, our electric vehicles. But in 2020, when we thought about our strategic plan in Renault, we thought about giving Flins another turn in its career as a site, and to turn it into the first European site dedicated to the circular economy of mobility. Circular economy of mobility, meaning that we want to make that site the flagship of circular economy in the field of mobility in Europe. And so Refactory was born. Refactory, it's three things. It's first, it's a name, yes. It's a vision, and it's a business model. The vision, in short, it's the service that the industry can provide to circular economy in respect of our natural resources and mindful of our planet. The business model, it's creating value on three dimensions. Economics, of course, in order to maintain the sustainability of our activity, environmental and social. And social because we want to accompany the changes in the skill sets of our employees in order to tackle the challenges of circular economy moving forward. So what can you see if you actually go to Flins today? It's a totally different site, you know, than 2 or 3 years ago. What you see is basically 4 different projects, right? The first one is called Retrofit, and it's about extending the lifetime of our vehicles. And I will jump into that in a second if you allow me to do so. The second project is called Re-Energy. And Re-Energy, it's about giving second life storage energy solutions for electric batteries. The third project is called Restart. And Restart, it's exactly about giving our employees and about the community in order to for the people who work in circular economy to get trained, to acquire the skills which are necessary to embrace the challenges moving forward. And finally, the last one is Recycle, and we'll come back to it in a second.
You just mentioned that the retrofit. What does that look like?
What is it, right?
Yeah.
So Retrofit, it's a bunch of different things. The flagship project of Retrofit is what we call the factory VO, which is called in English the used car refurbishing factory. And what we do there is that we take used cars and we refurbish them in order to provide them with a second life. So the capacity of our factory is around 45,000 vehicles per year. So 45,000 used cars that we actually take within Flins, refurbishing them shorter in a short period of time than what the solutions to date were able to do, and provide them back on the market. So it's really about extending the lifetime of the vehicles, right? The second type of activities that we find in Retrofit is what we're launching this year, and we're working very hard on that. It's the retrofit from diesel to electric engines. So for any owner of a vehicle being able to transform the engine from a ICE combustion engine into an electric one. And we're also working on different projects like a heavy fleet maintenance for our B2B customers.
So you're transforming old engines to new electric ones. Why is Renault embarking on this project at all?
So we're embarking on that project because, first of all, this is part of our strategic plan. The whole thing about Renault is moving from volume to creating value. And creating value is not necessarily only about economics, it's also about social, environmental. So point number one, it's clearly deeply ingrained into our strategy. Second, we also wanted to create poles of excellence within the group and to get back to our DNA, and we have deep roots in France, and it's also about, you know, the generosity of the group towards its customers. That's really something that is in the mind of our employees. So deeply rooted into our strategic plan. But there is something also related to our natural resources, because you know, being a car OEM, we have a responsibility towards natural resources consumption. And in order for ourselves to limit our impact on natural resources, we need to take and design, innovate on solutions which will transform the industry so that we don't have to take too much from the earth and actually take most from the existing, mines that are actually driving on the roads.
Which is why we're all wanting to be a part of this circular economy. You mentioned earlier that important pole that is a part of the refactory, which is restart, which is, of course,
Right.
the stuff about the employees, because it demands a new skill set when you change a factory. Could you tell us more about that?
Sure. We just launched in Flins what we call the campus. And the campus, it's a place dedicated to learning, to training, that welcomes employees on the one hand, but also corporations. So if you have any need to actually get trained to circular economy in a new way, you can come to Flins and get the trainings from campus on that. But we would like to train roughly 4,000 people by the end of 2025 in order to embrace the challenge of circular economy. And we really have to innovate, in that space. We have to innovate on products, we have to innovate on business models, we have to innovate on the way to collaborate. So all of that requires, centers in order to provide that knowledge and dissipate that knowledge within ourselves. So campus is one activity, with one core activity of Restart. We have other activities like our innovation center, and our hub of innovation, which is roughly, to summarize, a place where startups can actually come to Flins and work together with Renault in order to innovate on those solutions necessary to find a better future for businesses and vehicles. So all, it's the idea that we really need all of the energies in order to succeed in that space. And we're creating the ecosystem. That's what Restart is about, creating the ecosystem in order to succeed. Flins is one of those sites, but there is also other sites that are opening up. There is one in the south of Spain, in Sevilla, and we're actually launching some others across the world. So it feels like it's starting to work and to spread.
So Flins has this sort of sprawling plant that is a factory that gives a second life to vehicles. It also has this restart element to it, the campus, the education, the startups. Can it be the same elsewhere? Can you have another Flins elsewhere? You mentioned Seville. Does Seville also have a factory remaking engines?
So the idea is that what we're actually doing in Flins, first of all, we cannot claim victory yet, because I think we'll claim victory, when all of those issues related to environment will be behind us, and we're very far away from that. So we are very humbly, taking a responsibility in that by trying to find new ways, new solutions. But what's currently happening in Flins is by definition replicable, elsewhere. What it is it's really the notion, the idea that we have decades, if not century, of innovation that can be transformed at the service of circular economy, and that's happening currently in Flins. It can happen in Seville because of the different projects that we have there. The devil is in the details, on those projects, because, for example, refurbishing a used car in Flins is not going to be exactly the same in Spain or in Portugal or in other parts of Europe, because the market, the used car market, is very different from country to country. But what we have started to do in Flins is to innovate on the business models, trying to innovate by working with the ecosystem to find solutions to make all that work. And I think what's transferable is that innovation without any boundaries.
So how does Refactory fit into Renault Group's larger environmental goals?
It's actually a good question, because Flins plays two roles. The Refactory has the role of being the proof that transforming a site towards circular economy is actually doable. And we have many companies visiting us, trying to understand, how we're currently doing it, what are the secret sauces in order to make it happen. So it's the notion that Refactory has a proof of concept kind of role, within Renault Group, and it's starting to work. There is a convincing, element to it. Second, in our plan, it's actually quite important for the Renault Group to number one, limit the impact on natural resources. Number two, limit the CO2 emissions, and we have commitments towards that. I won't explain that in details. Third point is also to make sure that we supply some resources or that we secure resource supplies in very strategic materials, and extending the lifetime of our vehicles is the first step towards that, and recycling is the other way to do it. And lastly, we think there is an element of sovereignty, of our decisions. So it's very important that circular economy is also a way to make sure that what we're actually doing, in Renault, in Europe, is actually through the short loops that we're creating on materials and parts, probably giving us a bit more freedom, and being less relying on different sourcing very far away, from where the operations are located.
Indeed. You mentioned earlier that sometimes you do have to convince people. There is a convincing element into embarking on a project like this. How can circular models be ambitious business models?
Setting the ambition is not really the problem. It's really the execution, which is the key. But setting the ambitions is actually not a small part of the success. I'll give you an example. We're claiming that we're working, and we are actually working on that very hard, that we will be able to provide in Flins a job for all the workers that used to be in the assembly line before. So we're targeting 3,000 people in 2030 dedicated to circular economy in Flins, which is roughly the number of employees that we had dedicated to assembling the vehicles, at the peak time. So that's setting a level of ambition. We already embarked 700 people. We started roughly 18 months ago, so it's in a good way. But 700 is still far away from 3,000. So we need to make sure that we are developing, all the projects which are necessary to do so. Second point, it's about the business plans, and we cannot claim that we will be sustainable in our activities without business plans that are robust enough in order to be profitable, so that the proceeds from the businesses are actually helping us reinvest in those activities. And the business plans that are required in the field of automobile today in circular economy need to be innovative. We cannot work exactly in the same way than before, because we need to invent the short loops, we need to invent many things. In order to do so, we have the chance to have invested in circular economy in the group like 10 years ago, roughly, being at the front run of different operations, such as Indra. It is a company that we co-own with Suez in the field of end-of-life vehicles. So how to take the most out of the vehicles that are at their end-of-life stage and transform them back into something that can be new. Another company that we have is Gaia. And Gaia is a company that is creating short loops on polypropylene plastics, on copper, and on rare earth materials from the catalysts that we find at the back of our ICE engines. So those businesses are currently up and running. They are running. They are profitable. They do have customers. They do have short loops. They do have everything in place. What we're currently doing is that we're scaling this up, and Refactory is helping us on the way. But we really need to be innovative in that space.
It sounds like going circular does appear to be a huge effort, and there's so many stars that have to align for it to actually happen. Is it worth it? Has it been worth it for Renault Group?
Oh, definitely. It's worth it in many different points. Besides, the business aspect and the environmental aspect of it, I would just say that I've been amazed by the amount of energy, of positive energies that those types of projects are actually crystallizing within the company on the one hand, but also within the industry, because as mentioned many times, we really need to find solutions and innovate. So we really need to have the greatest minds around, the blank sheet that we have in front of us. And so I've been amazed by how you know, the people working on those projects actually, you know, involve getting, you know, extra time in order to find the solutions and build ecosystems in order to make that a success. Worth it in that space, definitely. And frankly, we start to see, you know, the results of those short loops that we are creating all over the place in our production of new vehicles, right? Because the recycled plastics gets into our vehicles, the recycled copper gets into our vehicles, the recycled rare earth materials gets inside our vehicles as well. So it's from an economic standpoint, it's starting to be visible, and it's a great source of pride.
Great source of pride. Very meaningful project. Thank you so much, Jean-Philippe Bahuaud, for that.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening. And thank you to our previous speakers for sharing their vision as well. Thank you for your patience. I know it is a lunchtime. That was the end of our session on infinite life cycles. We did get through quite a lot in just an hour and 15 minutes about the right to repair movement, how to lobby companies, how to influence lawmakers, and lots of different topics there. We heard from our three panelists about concrete examples of solutions that we need to enter that virtuous cycle that is the circular economy. So thanks for listening.